like their way. Had to fight and misbehave, had to find a way to change, had to leave to find my way. Caught up in a daydream, I beat my mind up there almost daily. It's how I pass time, no opinions safely. It's how I understand what I want in this place, see. Cause everybody wanna tell you bad things, what could go wrong, what fame brings. But success is a finicky thing, and if you ain't sure, no, it'll never be. I don't wanna let myself down, myself down. I don't wanna let myself down, myself down. I don't have to plan it, I can go change my fate. You won't understand it, all alone, that's okay. People I can't stand them, they don't want me to change. Keep me where I'm standing, and I don't want to be where I am. And I want something more, take a chance. It could be possibly my last dance, my last dance. I don't want to let myself down, myself.
What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Happy Wednesday. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're glad to have you here. Day 2, broadcasting from home. Studio still underwater and still digging out over there. Hopefully we will get things fixed up for the new year. Lots of exciting news for you today. Let's go ahead and hit the top story. I saw this story, it just made me laugh so hard. CNN wrote a hit piece on the Tradwives movement. That's right. The article is titled, Tradwives Promote a Lifestyle that Evokes the 1950s, but their nostalgia is not without controversy. We'll talk about that at the top of the show. At 7:20 this morning, I'm going to give you the background on the Supreme Court agreeing to keep Title 42 border policy and why Justice Neil Gorsuch was the lone Republican to vote against the other Republicans. We'll talk about that. At 7:30 this morning, who got canceled in 2022? Who? From celebrities to politicians and entertainers of all stripes, we will go through the list of people who got canceled for their very unpopular opinions in 2022. Thankfully, I survived. At 7:51 this morning, if you can still hear that goop in my throat, sorry about that, but I thought an interesting article for those of you who are out there who still aren't feeling so hot, that you like this article about how doctors treat themselves. When doctors get sick with the flu and other viruses, what do doctors do to feel better? Excuse me. At 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to speak to Vance Ginn. Vance is going to join us. He is a senior fellow at Young Americans for Liberty and a former Trump official, top economist for the Office of Management of Budget. We'll talk to him at 8 a.m. this morning about why the Fed has given up on a big worker rebound. The workers just aren't coming back. And at 8:20 this morning, Whoopi Goldberg doubles down on comments she made a year ago, 2 years ago, when she said that the Holocaust wasn't about race. We'll talk about that. And at 8:30 this morning, Judge Andrew Napolitano will be joining us to talk about his thoughts on Neil Gorsuch dissenting with the other conservative Supreme Court justices on immigration. It's going to be good. And if we got time at the end of the show, BuzzFeed, which is tracking this morning 70 cents a share, looking at their share price today, 70 cents a share, has an article that I'm going to share with you. 33 Gen X things that will make you nostalgic. Oh boy, Gen X, you're going to get your chance in the sun today. It's going to be a great show. Let's go ahead and hit the top story. Good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're glad to have you here today. Quest Fanning says he's 5 minutes behind. No, sir, you're right on time. John Rail, good morning to you. Chris Morrill, nice to see you. Chris Morrill, John Rail, and Quest Fanning, I guess, is that who's over there today? Oh, Tolly is there. Good morning, Tolly. Thanks for coming on the show today. All right, let's talk about Tradwives. Now, this CNN hit piece, I just think it's actually really good. I'm going to read this to you here. Tradwives promote a lifestyle that evokes the 1950s, but their nostalgia is not without controversy. Have you seen this a lot on social media? A lot of right-wing Republican girls who are out there. And you know what? I'm going to say that most of them are virtue signaling because a true tradwife, does not have time to be on the internet posting pictures of her butt. Okay? A true tradwife is not on Instagram posting photographs of her ample bosoms. Okay? That's all I'm going to say, ladies. So if you're a true tradwife, you need to log off, get rid of social media, stop being a hypocrite. All right, let's get it right to this article. On certain corners of the internet, a segment of women is exhibiting nostalgia for an era it has ever known. It has never known. Fact check. Okay, true. Yes. These ladies had no idea what it was like to live in the 1950s. Millennials and Zoomers, that's my age and lower, glamorize the aesthetics of 1950s Americans, donning retro fit and flare glasses and posting vintage illustrations of aproned housewives placing dinner on the table. Yes, we do like our tradwives placing dinner on the table, don't we? Don't we, gentlemen? I need cigar and scotch for this. The politics also harken back to the post-World War II era boom, at least for those who were straight, white, and middle class, says CNN. Not me, okay? It's from CNN, okay? Don't take these quotes out of context. Although I'll try and be careful about when I'm offering my opinion between what CNN is writing. These young women belong to a small subculture culture called tradwives, as we said, short for traditional wives. Now, they aren't your average stay-at-home moms. They sneer at what they consider to be modern-day feminism. My opinion, rightly so. With its girl bosses and its ungratifying grind. You know what? I gotta agree. And they also wax lyrical about the value of traditional gender roles. Yes, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. What's wrong with that? Crucially, they promote submission to one's husband. Sometimes, now here's CNN, sometimes evoking fundamentalist Christian principles in their beliefs. Oh no. Not even a fundamentalist Christian, but I mean, like, they're allowed. As tradwives showcase their idyllic domesticated lives on social media, which I think is, again, not tradwife behavior. You're not a real tradwife if you're posting it on social media. Implicit is the message that today's women and girls are being, quote, red-pilled by the feminist movements that promise to liberate them. Fact check, true. That's absolutely happening. And that true security and fulfillment can be achieved by reverting to certain norms of the past. You know what? I have to say, CNN, that's actually well written and stated. And you know what? Probably true. And then it continues on this hit piece about the tradwives. They say, tradwives are a fringe subculture. Maybe, possibly. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, possibly. In the grand scheme of internet phenomena, tradwives are a fringe group, says CNN. Oh boy, wow. Online mentions of tradwives go back at least as far as 5 years ago, but 2020 saw a noticeable uptick in usage of the term, according to data analysis. The tradwife discourse continued to grow in 2022 as tradwife content across social media increased and media outlets subsequently covered the trend. But while they found about 152,000 mentions of Tradwives across like Twitter, Tumblr, Reddit, and all that, negative mentions overwhelmingly outnumbered positive ones, suggesting that a strong backlash is present too, says CNN. Not me, CNN. Okay. And if the negative mentions out, how do you know what's a negative mention anyway, CNN? The numbers of the like what did they, here's the thing. If they had 100 here's if 152,000 mentions of Tradwives, CNN went out there and pulled this data analyst pulled this data. How did they know that 152,000 mentions that the majority of them were negative? Right? Do you think that the data analysts for this actually went and sat down and looked at 152,000 mentions and were like, this one's a positive mention, this is a negative mention, this is, or did they just kind of go, yes, oh, it's all just, it seems to be the majority. It's like if you don't know how the legislature works, sometimes they'll take a yes or no vote, like an up or down vote, and they'll say, all in favor say aye, all in negative say nay. And the nays will clearly outnumber the ayes. But if the speaker is like, you know, if he's corrupt, which a lot of them usually are, then he'll just say the ayes have it, right? And I'm like, it doesn't matter, right? Because they didn't take a roll call vote. They just were like, they just kind of looked at the numbers and were like, yes, oh, yes, it's something like this. Okay. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you this morning. We hold the cards, ladies, says Elizabeth Fanning Press. Very true. Dustin says, giving CNN a hand. What? Yeah. JGJ asking the real questions this morning says, so how many Tradwives are there in the U.S. compared to Karens? Seems that Karens outnumber since election results for the past few times. Very good. Very good question there. Probably, yeah, they're not going to sit down and say, oh, well, there are more Karens than Tradwives in the United States. This is funny. Though the numbers of self-identified Tradwives are low, CNN congratulates themselves by determining by an ayes vote. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Social media has allowed them to reach sizable audiences. The 10 to 15 largest Tradwife accounts have tens of thousands of followers. Ooh, tens of thousands of followers across Instagram and YouTube, according to an analysis from Political Research Associates, a think tank focused on the U.S. political right. Interesting. A think tank that is focused on the U.S. political right. I wonder what kind of a think tank that is. They say that whenever you see things like that, you got to understand that there are people who read CNN and take that kind of stuff seriously. They read that and they're like, ooh, a think tank focused on the U.S. Oh, their name is Political Research Associates. I'm sure it's not shady at all, not some Soros-funded left-wing radical Marxist funding Antifa group that's dedicated to taking down anything to the right of Joseph Stalin. CNN continues on, and they say women who associate with the label exist on a spectrum of sorts, with varying ideas about what it means to be a tradwife and various reasons for promoting these ideas. Okay. Estee Williams, she's 24. She posts tradwife content on TikTok, says she doesn't consider herself to be super traditional, but implements traditional gender roles in her life and relationship. Oh my God. Which she frames as a personal choice. Oh, holy crap. We can't have that.
Oh, God!
Absolutely
no, God,
not.
Please, no! No!
No way.
No!
Personal choice is not allowed in the society advocated for by CNN. She said she isn't concerned with whether others adopt those same values, but is merely sharing her lifestyle with others who want to embark on a similar path.
Perfect.
I love it. She says, I love the 50s aesthetic with my own modern twist on homemaking. The difference is that we have a choice. Women can choose not to be homemakers or work or have a mix. I love it. Beautiful. Estee Williams, you're lovely. A blogger by the name of Elena Pettit, meanwhile, has written on her website, The Darling Academy, about what she feels tradwives are not, while noting that her intent isn't to indoctrinate other women. She says, though a traditional housewife may submit to her husband, she is not considered of lesser importance to him. I like that. By her definition, a tradwife isn't opposed to women's rights, but openly rejects the side of feminism that is man-hating, takes a victim mentality in all things, and promotes that the future is female.
How dare you?
How dare you? Now, CNN continues on and says that these ideas aren't particularly new. Women who advocate for strictly traditional gender roles aren't a new phenomenon. Anti-feminists in the 19th and 20th centuries resisted women's suffrage. Oh, of course, it's all about women's suffrage. Why must the women suffer? And some activists in the late 20th century opposed the Equal Rights Amendment. Yeah, like Phyllis Schlafly and every other conservative who thought that it would lead to essentially us having children coming into drag shows. Well, and now here we are. All right, so we're going to have to continue this after the break. All this tradwife talk has me craving a sandwich, says Chris Moore. I know, my lovely tradwife made me some oatmeal with some fresh fruit. I'm going to go and enjoy that. My lovely tradwife. We think we're going to see her as less than me, but we do have some traditional roles. We'll be back with more about this when we get back on the Austin Peterson Show on the Real Talk Radio Network. Or the Wake Up America Show on wakeupAmericaShow.com, because it's not my afternoon show. I'm all kinds of messed up. I got a fever. And the only cure is more Cowbell on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here on the program today. Nice to see you, Quest, Rare Camellia, Jacob Champion, and a hit piece that CNN wrote about the Tradwives movement. Jacob Champion, weighing in over there in the chat, says that his family is doing a gender-swapped 1950s traditional. Did the math and found out I'd be earning negative $5 an hour if I kept my job. So now we just save money by having me stay home with the kids. Jacob, there you go. Nice. Good for you, bud. Did the math. Dustin weighs in and says, it's so sad you are shadow banned. Yeah, it's the same over on Instagram as well. If you go over to Instagram, you have to type in AP for Liberty, the entire handle, or else you won't find me. YouTube does that as well. But it's worse on Facebook, where they basically, if I post anything on Facebook, it just doesn't get seen at all, pretty much. I'm not like, they allow me to post on my personal page on Facebook. And if it's something personal that's like, a photograph of like my wife, then like too many people really like my personal life for them to suppress that, I guess, because usually that's where I'll get most of my attention. But I can't like post all my, political stuff over on my personal page, because that's just not what that Facebook page is for. But, what can you do? You just got to roll with the punches. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Quest Fanning, thanks, brother, for the super chat. We appreciate you. That was very generous of you. Looking forward to getting those New York bagels, dude. I'm friggin' excited about that. You can send a super chat as well by heading over to YouTube. Quest Fanning said, my co-equal mentors in the Liberty journey are Austin Peterson, Shane Hazel, and Aaron Abel. The odds look long, but the success of Liberty is locked in. I have faith. I'll pour out a 40 from my boy, Aaron. Yes, rest in peace, Aaron. Aaron Abel was a good man, and he was a freedom fighter who we loved very much, who passed away this year. So 2022 was pretty rough. Well, great info, great show, great guests. Wish more would see it, says Dustin. Thank you very much. Do you like that little, oh, wait a minute. You can't even see that little super chat. Hold on. There you go. Boom. See the little Quest Fanning super chat animation down there? Yeah, it just popped up for a second. I had that. I had that installed for you guys. So whenever somebody does a super chat and I'm on this screen with like the little window, your name and your super chat will pop up right down there. Also, if you become a subscriber to the YouTube channel, which is like $2.99 a month, that's how you get like the emojis and access to discounts at the AP for Liberty shop. By the way, if you are a subscriber to the YouTube channel, make sure that you contact me, send me an email so that I can send you your discount code, because it's a pretty sizable discount, 20% off of the AP for Liberty shop. Make sure that you send me an email so that way you can get your 20% off discount code. Appreciate you very much. Quest is so kind to us, says my wife, Stephanie. Absolutely. Aaron, rest in peace, says Elizabeth Fanning Press. Absolutely. Aaron was a good man, and he did a lot for me. And I really loved him very much. Good Quest. Wow. Two $20. That'll make it 40-ish. Thank you, Quest. We appreciate your generosity. It's a lot of money for us. It's definitely going to go a long way because I've got some more expensive equipment to buy after the studio flood. So that's going to go a long way to help us do it. Still haven't decided what I'm going to be doing on the whole studio thing. So Elizabeth Fanning Press says, Quest is my long lost rich relative. Yes, don't we all wish that we had a long lost rich relative like Quest? We'll be doing the AP for Liberty Shop giveaway this week, says Steffi. That's true. If you are a monthly sponsor, then you do get entered into the monthly prize drawing for the gifts. And I think Chris Morrill, Chris is over in live stream. He won a shirt, and John Compass won a shirt, and we're going to give away another piece of apparel this week. So if you're not a monthly donor, make sure that you do that, because everybody, even if you're like on the Freedom Ninja Army here on YouTube, if you're a subscriber over on our website, or if you're a subscriber here on YouTube, everybody who is a monthly subscriber is entered into the prize giveaways that we do every month. So make sure that if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and it's only, I think it's like $2.99 a month, and you get a discount in the shop, you get entered in the monthly prize drawings, and you get what else? We've got all kinds of good stuff. If you donate enough, if you donate like $100 over on the Wake Up America Show website, we give you a free Buddha and keychain, I think. I'm not sure. Stuff you'll have to remind me. My brain's feverish, so I can't remember. That's enough for a private dance, says Chris Morrill. Yes, it is. It's almost enough for me to replace some of the equipment, though, that we lost. So hopefully someday it'll be warm enough to wear said shirt, says Chris Morrill. Yes, no kidding. What shirt did you get? Oh, the come back with a warrant shirt, or what was the oh, am I being detained? Yes, that was a good pick, Chris. I'm glad you enjoy your shirt over there, and hopefully it will be warm enough for you to wear it sometime soon. All right, the Tradwives movement we're talking about. Their ideas aren't particularly new. CNN had written this hit piece. Excuse me. Hope you'll be patient with me as I fight my way through the sickness. But here's what CNN writes. They say, continuing on, what sets Tradwives apart from their predecessors is the visibility that social media platforms afford them, says Catherine Rottenberg, an associate professor at the University of Nottingham. What a name, Rottenberg, an associate professor at the University of Nottingham. I mean, as Americans, we hear a name like Rottenberg, and we're like, and as elitist bastards, we hear a title like associate professor, and we're like,
why are you gay?
And then as fans of pop culture, we hear University of Nottingham, and we're like, oh, it's like the sheriff of Nottingham.
How dare you?
Anyways, Catherine Rottenberg says, Tradwife, her work examines neoliberal feminism. Yes. She says that Tradwife influencers package their ideas about the natural order of things into blog posts and bite-sized content, and in some cases, monetize their efforts.
No, God! No, God,
Oh,
please,
no.
no!
Tradwife influencers Austin. These Tradwives are sharing things like Yorkshire pudding recipes and etiquette tips alongside posts titled, Your Husband Should Always Come First. Amen. And Men Are Not Toxic, a year of advocating traditional family values. Tolly, I'm like you. I always think of the cartoon sheriff of Nottingham as well. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm speaking about the Tradwives movement. We're talking about a hit piece that was written over at CNN I think that they are I think this hit piece shows that they are afraid. I think when you attack something, it's because you see it as a threat. Now, this Rottenberg character says the movement, more generally, depends on savvy entrepreneurial women like these who, through their social media activities, classes, courses, advice books, and products, advocate and popularize tradwifehood as a desirable choice and identity. She wrote this in an email to CNN. She added, far from rejecting neoliberal capitalism, the Tradwife movement is deeply embedded in it. Oh no, CNN doesn't like this. That's why I like it. It's pretty good stuff. We still got some more to go. The next part of this is Tradwives reflect an anxiety around societal shifts. I might agree with some of that. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Hey, it's Austin. Thanks for watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show. 2022 has been an exciting year for the Peterson household. Steffi and I celebrated our first anniversary, and my new radio program, The Austin Peterson Show, was syndicated in St. Louis just over a month ago. There have been some challenging times, but with the help and support of good friends like you, we've been able to come out even stronger at the end of this year than when we started. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the Cantina crew, especially Camelia Peterson, Tolly Owens, Jamie Marie Pope, Chris Morrill, Matt Unruh, Quest Fanning, Elizabeth Fanning Press, Tina Martin Goodrick, John Rail, Jasper Logan, Kathy Jo Loy, Edie Vogel, Grant Sundberg, Anna DePalm, Doug Hill, Andy Opperman, Lyle and Lori Rosberg, John Peterson, John Mashurik, Ava Lavasco, Leslie Scott Russell, Liberty Liss, Pam Ames, Cecilia Harden, Mary Kramer, and dozens more than I could list here. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and may your days be merry and bright with a Happy New Year.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America Show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
morning, Rise and Freedom. It's Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. Jacob Champion, you are a champion. Thank you very much for that super chat donation. We appreciate it. We are kind of digging out with the studio having a pipe exploded. Everything got soaked. A bunch of our adapters for our equipment fizzled out, which means some of our cameras even, which are kind of older cameras, many of them, no longer are operational. Thankfully, I have a GoPro, and I did have a camera that I got at a thrift shop a couple weeks ago. And just so you know, we are very thrifty, Stephanie and I. We like to save money, so I never buy stuff full price. I always find ways to cut costs and save money, because it's your money after all. You're supporting the show, and I try and be as fiscally conservative as possible. Now, I know what's going to happen is people are going to see me going to Japan in March, and they're going to be like, well, Austin, what about that? And that's all the donations. We got that money from Facebook. For like 2-3 months, Facebook decided that they didn't hate me, and they allowed me to earn from what they call their bonus program, which they don't let me do anymore. But they gave me a sizable chunk of cash, so I set that aside for a trip to Japan for my lovely wife. And then after that, we're going to have a baby, hopefully. Trying to have a baby. Let's hope Fawn gets his place fixed up. It looked pretty cool. Yeah, it did. And good morning to all of our friends. Let's see, who do we have over there today? Jim Santos over on Twitch today. It's nice to see you. Good morning, Jim. Thanks for joining us on the program today, and thanks for following us over on Twitch. Glad to have you here. 36 people are watching the show today over on YouTube. Glad to have you here. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can get notifications whenever we're live. I'm sure you came here for the news, not to hear me talk about personal stuff. Tradwives, we're talking about today. These are the movement of what the CNN article, this hit piece that I'm reading from, it calls a fringe group of people who, whenever tradwives are mentioned on social media, at least according to CNN, they say that it's most of the time it's in a very negative context. Oh, really? Out of 152,000 mentions that CNN was managed to pull up, it just so happened that the majority of them were negative. I'm going to put a cough drop in, even though that's against etiquette. Too bad. 5 years after #MeToo, I'm reading from CNN, sparked a global conversation around sexual violence, sexism, and power. We weren't going to get away without mentioning that, were we, CNN? It might seem puzzling that a life of traditional gender roles and submission to a male partner is resonating with some young women. Why is that surprising to you? But in longing for the culture, men in the 1950s loved their wives, FYI. In the era of the culture of 1950s, but longing for the culture of 1950s, these women are responding to our current political moment, said Rottenberg. While the, quote, lean in, girl boss movement of the early 2010s encouraged women to do more and work harder, critics characterized it as elitist and out of touch. For those of you who aren't familiar, the lean in was the Sheryl Sandberg push. She was the chief operating officer of Facebook for a number of years. And actually, I believe when she left Facebook, it came out that she was basically using Facebook, or Meta now, as kind of her personal piggy bank for all of her own personal stuff. And I think her and Mark Zuckerberg had a pretty nasty falling out. So the corruption of lean in might have led in part to this movement of trad wives. The people got sick of this girl boss BS that they saw online, and there was a reaction to that. Why are people surprised that reactionaries, right-wing reactionaries, react? By the time that the pandemic hit, women were up against an always-on work culture. I think that's actually very true. Stagnating wages, yes, absolutely, and an eroded social safety net with a now worsening caregiving crisis. In a society where women already shoulder the majority of unpaid domestic work, staying home to focus on the household full-time might be preferable, though also, says CNN, a privileged choice. It shouldn't have to be a privilege to be able to be a mother. It shouldn't have to be a privilege. You know, the fact that the economy is in the shitter, thanks to what Democrats have done, it is a perfect example of why people have to stay home, and women don't want to have to work full time like men do. That's the whole reason why the gender wage gap exists. It's not because men get paid more per hour. It's because men work more hours and always have worked more hours. And that's because women don't want to work as many hours as men, and they leave earlier than men on the job, and they take more vacation, and they also have maternity leave. And there's a variety of factors about the gender wage gap. But when you have what we're all suffering from right now, which is this worsening economy, and you have stagnant wages, and you're always on, everybody, like, Elon Musk, and not everybody worked at Twitter before Elon Musk. Not everybody got to work like these Silicon Valley people in, Meta or Facebook or wherever, all these corporations where you basically could do nothing all day and work, sit on your phone and make TikTok videos about what it was like to work at Meta. Most of us don't have that kind of a luxury. Most of us have to clock in and grind out. We've got to do some work. And when it's an always on culture, meaning you're always on the clock and always having to respond to emails, and you're always being pestered by your boss or having somebody looking over your shoulder, you've got stagnating wages at work, right? And why are the wages stagnating, right? It couldn't have anything to do with inflation, right? Couldn't have anything to do with a massive amount of spending. No, CNN doesn't mention that. And so it makes perfect sense why women or some men choose to be stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads. Rottenberg writes, of course, the socialist take on this. She says, if there is no reliable health care, if women are making less money than their partners due to the gender wage gap, and there's no decent child care, then women ramping off the career path and serving their husbands and children provides a band-aid to these larger crises, and provides this band-aid with ideological cover. Whoa, pause here for just a minute. First of all, Elizabeth Fanning Press, thank you for the super chat. Happy and prosperous 23 to you and Steffi. Grateful for that. All of these donations that are made today are going to go to help us to revamp our studio and get some of the equipment that was lost. But she says if there's no reliable health care, right, which is true, women are making less money than their partners due to the gender wage gap. That's not true, or at least it's half of a lie, as PolitiFact might say. Fact check lie. And there is no decent child care. When you say there's no decent child care, what do you mean there's no decent child care? There's good child care out there, right? It's just that you have to look for it or you have to pay for it. Then women ramping off the career path and serving their husbands and children provides a band-aid to these larger crises. It's not a band-aid. It's called being a family. It's called getting together and doing what we've always done and banding together as a family to work together. If anything, it's probably a good thing, in my opinion. They see this as a bad thing. I see it as a good thing. In terms of privilege, Stephanie and I, we are privileged. I'm working from home today. This is what I'm doing. I'm cyber begging on the internet while I entertain you with content. And Stephanie's upstairs working from home as a social worker, doing her job. And that is very much a privilege. A lot of people did not have that privilege and can't work from home and do have to go out into the workplace and do have to bring home the bacon. So, I always want to make sure that I am, keeping my feet on solid ground and not being, I guess too elitist, if you will, and understanding my place in the world here, because not everybody has this kind of a situation. And a lot of people are going to have to make difficult decisions about what they want to do, because this economy is not going to improve while we have a Democrat like Joe Biden as president of the United States. This economy is just not going to improve until we have another Donald Trump in office or a Ron DeSantis in office, because here's the thing. Markets and the economy, they're organic and they respond to signals, political signals. Unfortunately, because politics has so much control over our economy, which it shouldn't have, but that's an argument for another day. The confidence that consumers feel, consumer confidence is a measure, a standard that economists use. Consumer confidence is increased when you have decent managers in the government. And again, I don't believe that the government should be the managers of the economy, but they are, whether or not I agree with that. And so what you need to have is people who believe in cutting taxes, cutting regulations. It's just unfortunate that we can't get somebody in office who believes in cutting taxes, cutting regulations, and cutting spending, because that would be ideal. Don't you think? I think it would be way better. Anyway, so all these economic factors, these societal factors, I bet you Vance Ginn has an opinion on that. We're going to talk to him about this at 8 a.m. And then Judge Napolitano will be joining us this morning at 8:30 to talk about that Supreme Court case where Neil Gorsuch dissented, joined the liberals on the court to dissent against the conservative majority on immigration. That's Title 42. Judge Napolitano has got some thoughts, and he'll weigh in on that at 8:30. Make sure you don't miss it. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
If I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors, what would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
It's me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas and a liberty New Year. Socialists and commies may try to convince you that the holiday's all about free stuff. But let's be honest, we all know whose wallet Santa's gifts are coming out of. There ain't no such thing as a free stocking. Santa is the only guy with a big white beard promising free stuff that we want anything to do with this holiday. And if you don't believe, you don't can't receive. It's a capitalist, consumerist holiday, and it's time for a Santa-sized stimulus. Get your free market merch at the AP for Liberty shop today and stuff your socialist sisters' stockings full of capitalist cheer. Ho, 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 ho!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It's exciting to see the numbers today. Glad to have so many fresh faces over there joining us on the live stream. Make sure that you click like on the video, hit subscribe, and click the bell notification icon. It really helps us to grow the channel and to get it in other people's feeds. And thank you to Quest Fanning and Jacob Champion and Elizabeth Fanning Press for your super chats today. Certainly very grateful. Happy holidays to you. I hope your 2023 is doing fine. Quest Fanning is gonna go get on the subway. Be safe, Quest. It's still only the 4th day of Christmas, says JGJ. I never understood that. I thought that the 12 days of Christmas ended on Christmas Day, but I don't remember. All right. Let's continue. I think we want to keep going on this Tradwives topic, don't you? I think that that's the way to go, because so far the conversation on it has been good. The numbers have been good. Let's continue talking about that. This Rottenberg lady from London, who is complaining about the Tradwives movement, she says if there is no reliable health care, if women are making less money than their partners due to the gender wage gap, and if there is no decent child care, then women ramping off the career path and serving their husbands and children provides a band-aid to those larger crises, and provides this band-aid with ideological cover. So she's not a fan of the Tradwives movement because she thinks that it's providing ideological cover for economic reasons for why women are going back and working in the home. Well, I think, culturally too, she's missing the boat, right? There are always going to be economic incentives for why women would choose to return to the home. But you can't forget the cultural incentives as well. The cultural incentives for why women are returning to the home, I think, is, and I don't like to use this word very often, but the cultural degeneracy of the left. Women have that mama bear sort of instinct that I think exists in the human female, and I know this because I've seen it quite frequently. As a matter of fact, Liberty Laura Lincoln, who's a friend of the show, and she comes on quite frequently. You guys might remember her. Her and I had a conversation after she had kids where I was sort of noting a little bit of a change in her ideological makeup. She was very much like a hardcore libertarian, just like myself. And I asked her, I was like, does having kids make you feel more conservative? And she says, yes, the mama bear inside me comes out. And that desire to protect your children is, I think it's, it's hormonal. So some of this might have to do with just natural women desiring to fulfill their biological imperatives and wanting to stay home and raise their family because they're biologically wired to do so. Despite all the gender nonsense that you hear today, men and women reproducing is responsible for all life on this planet, and there's a reason why. It's because the hormones that guide us and drive us to have a sex drive and to want to reproduce are biological. Therefore, they are innate, and so there are innate biological reasons for why women would desire, I think, to stay home and to have kids and to be with their families and to be more traditional. But there are also economic factors. I won't disagree with this Rottenberg character. And I think also, of course, there is an ideological component of it. I agree. She says that burnout is one of the factors that, this is one tradwife that they interviewed. She says burnout is one of the factors that she cites in her decision to become a tradwife. Though she always knew she wanted to be a mom, she said she felt pressured to pursue a career, taking on a challenging course load in college while also working a job. But Williams said balancing it all, this is the tradwife, balancing it all was exhausting, and she realized she didn't want to experience the stress that her mother did as a single working parent. I didn't want to see myself struggle that way, she said, And I definitely didn't want to see myself struggle in school and struggle in work. I wanted to figure out what my purpose was. When I became a strong spiritual woman, I figured out myself. Well, I got to say, kudos to you. Robbie's over there bragging in the chat. He says, "Got to brag a little. I'm currently at my granddaughter's house. She's a millennial homeschooling trad wife. We're going shooting this afternoon." That's awesome.
Perfect.
Good for you, Robbie. Rare Camellia says most women want to be with their children if they have the option. No kidding, right? This Nottingham character, this lady Rottingham of Nottingham, Rottenberg lady, obviously doesn't have that mothering instinct. She must not have kids. When you don't have kids, I think your hormones haven't turned on, essentially. So, a lot of these are childless feminists who write these kinds of things and do these kinds of studies. So it shouldn't be any surprise that, that they would have these views. Elizabeth Press says motherhood is genetic. I agree. The desire for mating opportunities is what drives everything in our society. Absolutely true. Tyler Nelson. This is good stuff. Boy, I can't wait to talk to Vance Ginn about this because I want to ask him about some of these economic questions as well. Rather than recognizing crises of childcare and overwork as structural problems, Tradwives typically point the finger at feminism, Rottenberg said. It's not that particularly surprising that Tradwives consider themselves to be anti-feminists, given that their fixed notions of gender, I mean, boys have a penis and girls have a vagina, fixed notions of gender and glorification of alpha males. If you say you're an alpha male, then you're not, according to Camellia and our friends. So you know what? I'm not going to say it. Yeah. Well, the funny thing about the whole alpha male question, and I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, is that I really think that alpha males come in all shapes and sizes in terms of, what really makes an alpha male. I think that like the traditional notion of this is like ripped Chad kind of a guy. But to me, like an alpha male doesn't have to be like some swole bodybuilder to necessarily be an alpha male. An alpha male is just someone who is a leader and someone who is out in the front of the pack. And that can sometimes be people who are not gigantic or swole or even athletic at all in any shape. But I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Well, this has been a good topic, hasn't it? We blew through the whole who got canceled in 2022. I guess I'll do that tomorrow. But we are going to have Judge Andrew Napolitano coming up at 8:30 to talk about the immigration topic, and coming up next, Vance Ginn to talk about why. Oh God, I'm sorry, my brain is just sick. Somebody texted in and said, "Are you armoring your immune system with daily vitamin D?" No, I don't know. Vance Ginn's going to talk about why the Federal Reserve is giving up on most employees returning to the workplace. It's done. It's over. Talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website, and I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right. Well, you know what? Since we're talking about all these economic factors regarding why women are desiring to go home and stay with their kids, which would seem obvious, but apparently it's not to liberal feminists who are attacking this Tradwives movement, let's talk to an actual economist. He's a senior fellow at Young Americans for Liberty and he was a former top economist for Donald J. Trump. Joining us now on the line is Vance Ginn. Good morning, Vance. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Hey, Austin. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thanks so much for coming on, Vance. So let me just read this part to you. This is a story from CNN where they're attacking Tradwives, and they're saying this is what this woman from the University of Nottingham in London wrote. Her name is Rottenberg, and she says, if there is no reliable health care, if women are making less money than their partners due to the gender wage gap, and if there is no decent child care, then women ramping off the career path and serving their husbands and children provides a Band-Aid to these larger crises and provides the Band-Aid with ideological cover. How would you respond to Ms. Rottenberg?
Well, there's a lot in that to unpack, right? A big part of this is, the workforce is the place where you gain dignity, purpose, respect, those sort of things. A lot of research into that area. But there's also something about staying home, whether it be the male or the female in many cases today. There's a lot that goes on with the family and the family unit, which is a key institution within our society. And so trying to cast out these other factors at play is really set up the stage for bigger government. How can government come in and help people with their child care? How can government come in and pay for X, Y, Y, and Z. But we know what happens then is it just drives up the price for not only them because they got to pay higher taxes, but also for everyone else. When you subsidize something, you artificially get more demand, let's say childcare in this case, and it drives up the overall price if supply doesn't increase at the same rate, which is oftentimes overregulated and everything else too. And so there's a lot that's to unpack there. And I think what ultimately comes down to is that we don't need more government. What we in fact need is less government in these areas, and it'll give women and men in some cases, right, the opportunity to do things that are more affordable, whether it be stay home or to go to work. That should be something that's best made at the family decision level, not by government and politicians.
Oh, but Vance, in here, you're right. But for example, a lot of our ideological opponents on the right, what we would call the national conservative movement, their gripes about how about how the economy, that they agree with Elizabeth Warren on something like this. Their gripes about the state of the economy have made it so that women feel forced into the workplace, that they have to go work, and that it used to be back in the 1950s that a husband could have a job, be able to have, get paid a decent wage, Vance, and be able to have a car, take care of their kids, and the wife could be a mother. But you can't really do that anymore. And, I can't disagree with, Nat Cons and with Elizabeth Warren on their assessment. I might disagree on the cure for that. But those are sincere problems that people have today. You gotta work. Two people have to work in order to be able to maintain a household.
Right. I think there's a lot of things that are right there, Austin, just like with the Nat Cons or populists or progressives. They get a lot of the problems right oftentimes, but then the solution is wrong. And so what you see is that they'll want to bring in more government, which ends up exacerbating the problem without looking at the core problem of being government and what was going on in the first place with childcare and other things. I think it's another key thing to think about is what is the wage disparity between men and women? What's often touted out there is that there's this huge disparity between the two. Maybe there's some bias against women in the workforce and things of that nature, to where you'll often hear that women earn, 77 cents or 78 cents for every dollar that a man earns. But if you think about it, that or really look into the data here, that's based on averages. So the average income or wages for males versus average incomes or wages in this case for females, that's a 78 cents on a dollar. But the averages aren't the same. Males end up going into different fields, majoring in engineering and math and different technology sort of things that pay more on average, right? Versus females going on social work or nursing, things of that nature will pay less on average. But if you actually take the research that really does a good job of comparing those apples to apples instead of apples to oranges, so it says they have the same skills, the same experience and everything else, women earn maybe 98 cents for every man. I don't think that's a huge difference between the two. And so that's not really the big problem. The big problem is what's really driving up the costs, right, of all these other things that are out there. And that's where government's in, the Federal Reserve, printing too much money, all of those things are really what the problem is. And so not looking at those key problems will make us make the situation worse.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to Vance Ginn, Senior Fellow at Young Americans for Liberty and a former top economist for Donald Trump at the Office of Management and Budget. Is it Office of Management and Budget or Office of Management of Budget?
Management and budget. There's actually a management section of OMB that deals a lot with the personnel and different agencies. And then there's the budget part, which focuses on the dollar inflow and outflow of the executive branch.
Vance, I got a question for you, and I hate to display my ignorance on the show, but you know what? Probably there are other people who have these same kinds of questions. When I was in Kansas City for Christmas, I drove by the Kansas City Federal Reserve, and it is a massive building right next to the IRS. Big, beautiful building, giant parking garage. And I think to myself, if all they're doing is setting interest rates, why is there this what is the need for all of this personnel and all this? What are they doing in these giant buildings exactly?
That's a great question. The rate setting for their overnight lending rate, and I know you had Alex Salter, who's a good friend from Texas Tech Free Market Institute. He wrote a good piece here recently for American Institute for Economic Research, AIER, that talks about how the Fed doesn't really set interest rates, right? They target rates using their balance sheet, their overnight lending rate between banks. And that's really done up in DC. The FOMC, Federal Open Market Committee, they do all that in the DC branch, which is right there with all the other large ivory towers of government, Pennsylvania, all on those areas up in DC. But when you think about the branch in Kansas City, they'll have specific functions for each one of the 12 branches across the United States. There's also one in Dallas. I live near Austin, Texas, so there's one in Dallas as well. And so each one has a different thing. The Kansas City branch does a lot of the research, and they publish a lot of the research that the other branches do. But Dallas Fed does as well. They have their own measure of inflation. And so each branch has their own thing. The New York Fed is the one that really does the overnight lending, right? The Fed funds rate, where they lend out money overnight to banks to put money in the system. That's the New York Fed. But yeah, each branch has its own purpose.
Gotcha. Vance, the Federal, so maybe this is where this research came from. The Federal Reserve announced that when it comes to the job market, that they do not expect for people to return to the workplace in anywhere near the numbers that we had before the pandemic. What's this all about?
Yeah, there's some new research out by the Fed showing that a lot of people have decided to retire, especially over the age of 64. A lot of times what we as economists like to look at is the prime age working years, 25 to 54. Even those are almost back to where they were before the pandemic. It's still a little bit off if you look at the employment to population ratio, which is a good measure to look at. But those that are over 54, especially over like 64, a lot of times they were staying in the workplace before that, right? And there's some question about whether or not that's good or bad, but they were. And a lot of that brings about institutional knowledge that they are keeping in within the workforce. But during the pandemic, right, the shutdowns shut down a lot of the businesses that they were working at, and probably for many years, decades even, right? A lot of them have been able to keep their job for a longer period of time. And so whenever their business was shut down and maybe they didn't come back, they said, you know what? I don't really want to be a new person on the block, right, at a new business. Let me go ahead and either file for disability if I'm not over the age of 65 or, getting Social Security, or let me just go ahead and retire. And then also the last couple of years, we've seen soaring housing prices driven again by the Fed and bad policies out of DC. And that has given them some wealth that they can take on and maybe even cash in on if they would like, especially with low interest rates and everything else. And then at the same time, the stock market was booming there for a while. So they had all this additional wealth that they could kind of live on for a while. And they have been. And so they've stayed out of the workforce. And so the question is, will they come back? My thought is that it may take a while for them to come back. And I should just say that the Federal Reserve says that there's a gap, about 3.5 million people that are now out of the labor force compared to the trend before the pandemic. 3.5 million people. And about 2 million of them are probably those that are over the age of 55 plus, right? And so my thought is that now the stock market is coming back down some. Housing prices are starting to go back down as well. They're going to lose some of that wealth. So the question to me is, will they come back in the labor force? I think many of them will, and we shouldn't just wipe them off and say that they're not going to come back at all. We need a situation where there's a robust labor market and an economy so that they can come back. Get rid of these bad policies that are in DC with Congress overspending and running up massive deficits, and then the Federal Reserve printing so much money in the process. Those are bad policies that change your incentives of whether or not to work. That's not how government should be run. Government should be out of the way as a referee, not a player in the game.
Here's the problem, though, Vance, when it comes to, seniors in the workplace. I agree with my friend Liz Fanning Press over in the live stream, who says we were overemployed. At some point, people need to be able to retire, right? But it feels like with a lot of these senior citizens feel pressured because of these economic pressures that they've got to work until they die. And I mean, it's not like you and I, or we tend to live lives of privilege, Vance. You and I, we are kind of the elite. Most people don't travel, right? Most people don't fly. Most people don't go to economic conferences or get to go to Japan like I'm going to go with my wife. They don't get to do all these kinds of things in their lives because they're just living paycheck to paycheck. And it's kind of like, I'm not a communist, Vance, but I totally understand the resentment that a lot of people feel, especially as senior citizens, from going back into the workplace. That's not an economic question, but it's a human one, don't you think?
I think so. I think there's a lot of morality to it as well, whether or not people should work. I think that one of the big things to me is that we should be fruitful and multiply. I think work is a big part of that. One thing that we do see with senior citizens is that when they stop working, they tend to deteriorate faster than otherwise because there is something about keeping things going, keeping your mind going. I saw that happen with my own grandparents from, both my mom and dad's side, and they went down fast after. Maybe they would have either way, but there seemed to be some sort of a connection that you have with that purpose, with that dignity and respect that you get from work that you can't get whenever you're retired. It is nice to do those trips and other things, and I think people should take more opportunity to do that while they're working instead of waiting until retirement. Not everybody has that opportunity, like you said, though, which is unfortunate. But I guess my key point here, Austin, would be that we don't want government manipulating those decisions like they do. That should be a decision about the individual, about the individual's family and their circumstances versus what's going on by government. And in a free market capitalism, the best path to prosperity, right? In that sort of a situation, they would have the opportunity to think about, okay, do I work or not? There wouldn't be nearly the inflation that we have today in that sort of a system either, right? And those things are what's really creating more uncertainty for these individuals. And if that wasn't there, they could better make a decision of whether or not to work. I mean, it's one of the things, so, Austin, about like Social Security, for example, the full retirement age is 67 now, but Social Security is going to be essentially bankrupt pretty soon, where they're going to have to pay out less than what benefits they expected in just over the next decade. And maybe we need to be raising the retirement age. Well, that gets a lot of people up as well. Be like, why are you raising the retirement age? Well, it's a different day now. People are living 78 years old compared to with Social Security. It was closer to 60 years at that time. Most people weren't going to get on it anyway. These are a lot of changes created by government, not by individual. And so there's some things we really need to look at moving forward.
Agreed, Vance. Is there anything else that you think our listeners should know before we let you go?
Well, it's always a pleasure to be with you and the audience here, and I think that y'all are always hitting on the right strides. I think there's 2022 is almost over, right? So I probably won't see you until 2023, Austin. But I'm looking forward to 2023. I've always have some sense of optimism, which is interesting with economists being optimists, but I am an optimistic economist. But I do think we've got some big major headwinds coming in 2023. I'm hopeful that the Republicans taking the House will help to squash a lot of the big policies and big spending things that we've seen in D.C. But oftentimes Republicans have been, they've acquiesced and went along with it as well. So I'm hopeful that we can see some changes there. But let's see what happens in 2023. I look forward to seeing you then, Austin.
I guess we'll see you next year. Vance Ginn, a senior fellow, Young Americans for Liberty and top economist for Trump. Thank you very much for your time today.
Hey, have a good one, Austin.
Have a good one. What do you think of Vance Ginn? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you. Great big audience over there today. 44 people. Love to see it. Stick around through the commercial break. It'll be just a few minutes. And then don't forget, Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to join us at 8:30. When we get back, we'll continue our discussion about Tradwives and the social stigma that the left wants to place on women being good mothers. You don't want to miss that conversation, so stick around. We'll be back. But before we do, this is a commercial. Yes, I understand. But it is a live commercial, which means that I didn't pre-record this. I'm speaking to you live right now, and I'm talking to you about gold and silver. Now listen, if me, a libertarian, can't sell gold and silver to other libertarians, I think we just ought to pack up this show and go home, to be honest, because the Wake Up America show is sponsored, brought to you in part by Lear Capital at learaustin.com. Now, if you see all these people giving us super chats today and you're like, I wish I could give Austin $20 like Jacob Champion or $40 like Quest, but you can't because all the economic factors that Vance was talking about, totally understand. But here's what you can do. There's a free way for you to support the show, just getting more info from our friends over at Lear Capital. And maybe you'll come into some money and you'll say, hey, Austin, I'd like to buy some gold from your friends. I'm glad you recommended them. So what I'd like to ask for you today is get your free info kit at learaustin.com. That's LEARAUSTIN. If you love gold, you love silver, or what I highly recommend is if you've already got like a retirement account, because you actually do want to retire, you can put a portion of that into gold without any tax disadvantages. But you got to get more info. Head over to learaustin.com. Sign up for that free informational kit. They'll tell you everything you need to know about investing in gold, silver, and a Roth IRA. It's good stuff. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back with more Tradwife talk on the Austin Peterson Show, on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Hey, it's Austin. Thanks for watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. 2022 has been an exciting year for the Peterson household. Steffi and I celebrated our first anniversary, and my new radio program, The Austin Peterson Show, was syndicated in St. Louis just over a month ago. There have been some challenging times, but with the help and support of good friends like you, we've been able to come out even stronger at the end of this year than when we started. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the Cantina crew, especially Camelia Peterson, Tolly Owens, Jamie Marie Pope, Chris Morrill, Matt Unruh, Quest Fanning, Elizabeth Fanning Press, Tina Martin Goodrick, John Rail, Jasper Logan, Kathy Jo Loy, Edie Vogel, Grant Sundberg, Anna DePalm, Doug Hill, Andy Opperman, Lyle and Lori Rosberg, John Peterson, John Mashurik, Ava Lavasco, Leslie Scott Russell, Liberty Liss, Pam Ames, Cecilia Harden, Mary Kramer, and dozens more than I could list here. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and may your days be merry and bright with a Happy New Year.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. JGJ, Mad Mom Anon, Tolly Owens, Doug H., and all of our friends over on the live stream. 35 people watching now on YouTube. Glad to have you here. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon. I even saw we got some friends over on Twitch this morning with some awesome comments. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us over there on Twitch. I'd like to interact with the community, the little bit larger community. We ask our followers to join us over on YouTube. But if you prefer Twitch, it's up to you. Just that there's a lot more fun and friends over on YouTube at AP for Liberty. Okay, what should we say? Every time I hear my name in that ad, I wonder what I did wrong this time, says Doug H. Tolly Owen says, makes me jump every time. Brian, I heard it for the first time yesterday and looked at it Brian heard it for the first time yesterday and looked at me like I was super famous. You are super famous, Tolly. We appreciate you. Thanks for being a supporter of the Wake Up America show. We're grateful to all of you. It's been a great year. A lot of ups and downs. The recent down was, pipes burst to the studio, soaking a lot of my equipment. That was bad. And that I'm a little sick. That's bad. But I feel good knowing that you're here with me, hanging out in the morning, talking about the news. We're talking about this hit piece that CNN did about Tradwives. And we're talking about it in regards to this Rottenberg character. She's a liberal feminist, complaining about the Tradwives movement. She says, rather than recognizing crises of childcare and overwork as structural problems, Tradwives typically point the finger at feminism. It's not particularly surprising that Tradwives consider themselves anti-feminists, given that their fixed notions of gender and glorification of, quote, alpha males are precisely what many feminists have long fought against. They don't like alpha males. I'm sorry, but even liberal feminists like alpha males. There are stated preferences and there are revealed preferences. Women don't like feminist men. They cheat on feminist men. That's a quick trip to the friend zone. And honestly, you shouldn't trust feminist men, to be honest. It's just my view. To me, feminist men are, I think actually feminist men are more predatorial because I think they're using deceit to try and act like they're allies of women so that they can get close to women so that they can have sex with them. Yes, I think that feminist men want to, this is hilarious. There's an example of this in the animal kingdom. Cuttlefish will do this. It's like a type of squid, where a cuttlefish that's an alpha male will have a harem of female cuttlefish, and none of the other male cuttlefish can sleep with the females. So if a male cuttlefish who is not the alpha wants to sleep with the females, guess what? He signals like he's a woman. He pretends to be a female because the alpha cuttlefish will have all these females underneath it. So a male cuttlefish who's not the alpha will actually change, because they can change their colors and their shapes. They'll actually change their shape and their colors to look like a female, and then will go underneath the alpha male so that he can sleep with. Look, I don't know if cuttlefish sleep. I bet they don't. So that they can fuck the female cuttlefish. How about that, Austin? Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. I know I shouldn't be cursing like that this morning. You probably got kids. You can send a text this morning at 573-319-1586. Somebody says your equipment is insured. You can't insure a 15, 20-year-old camera. Unfortunately, some of this stuff is uninsurable because it's just way too old. You can text us today at 573-319-1586. We got Judge Napolitano coming up next. We're going to talk to him about Neil Gorsuch dissenting from the conservative Supreme Court justices. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
If I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors, what would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas and a liberty New Year. Socialists and commies may try to convince you that the holiday's all about free stuff. But let's be honest, we all know whose wallet Santa's gifts are coming out of. There ain't no such thing as a free stocking. Santa is the only guy with a big white beard promising free stuff that we want anything to do with this holiday. And if you don't believe, you don't receive. It's a capitalist, consumerist holiday, and it's time for a Santa-sized stimulus. Get your free market merch at the AP for Liberty shop today and stuff your socialist sisters' stockings full of capitalist cheer. Ho, 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 ho!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. Conservative justice, well, I guess we can't call him a conservative justice anymore. Neil Gorsuch, we'll have to say he's one of us. Dissented with the conservative Supreme Court, the majority, on immigration, specifically Title 42. Well, what's it all about? And why did Justice Neil Gorsuch stand with the liberals on the court? Joining us now to discuss is a man who no one would call a liberal. He's a libertarian, just like me. Judge Andrew Napolitano joining us now. Happy holidays, Judge. How are you, sir?
Oh, good morning, Austin. A belated Merry Christmas and an early Happy New Year. Of course, we were originally called classical liberals. And then the lefty liberals took the title liberal away from us and we became libertarians. But we still believe in the primacy of the individual and are skeptical of everything that government does because, as von Mises once said, government is essentially the negation of liberty.
Completely true, Judge. One of the things that separates classical liberals from conservatives or reactionaries is our stance and belief in regards to immigration. Now, I remember the days when you and I worked together at Fox, all the hell that you would get from conservatives there because of your immigration views. They didn't like what you had to say, and that hasn't changed until today. The party has become more restrictionist. The party has become more anti-economic freedom because, to me, immigration is not just a personal liberty thing, but it's also an economic question. And it seems as if Justice Neil Gorsuch himself disagrees with the conservative majority in regards to Title 42, even more evidence that he might be one of us. So what is this, Judge, Title 42, and why does Neil Gorsuch disagree with the conservative majority?
Okay. It's a little in the weeds. I'll do my best to explain it so that your audience can appreciate what happened. Title 42 is a section of the United States Code enacted in the early 1940s, so FDR is president, which allows the government summarily to reject people coming across the border for public health reasons. Even people that are escaping totalitarianism and have an absolute right under other sections of the US Code to make an application for asylum, this section trumps it. However, it doesn't force the government to use it, it permits the government to use it. In the Trump administration, President Trump, pursuant to the then raging COVID pandemic, ordered the Department of Homeland Security to use it and to reject everyone who tried to enter the United States coming from a country that had X, fill in the blank, level of infection of the pandemic. Joe Biden becomes president. The CDC declares that the pandemic is over, and Joe Biden's administration wants to stop using this authority to reject people summarily and to receive and accept their legitimate bona fide applications for asylum, whereupon 16 Republican state attorneys general claiming that immigration will harm their budgets because they will be required to provide a social safety net for immigrants, sued the federal government to compel it to follow Title 42. There were many lawsuits. They were consolidated in two cases. One federal judge ruled the government must follow Title 42. Another federal judge ruled the government may not follow Title 42 because there is no pandemic any longer. The cases were consolidated for appeal before the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice said to the Biden administration, you're going to follow Title 42 until we decide whether or not it is still good law. Justice Gorsuch, along with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, I'm smiling because I love one of my favorite dissents is Gorsuch and Ginsburg. Now I have another one, Gorsuch and Brown, the most liberal progressive member of the court and the most libertarian member of the court agreeing. And their dissent is a very simple one, saying, this is a policy judgment. This is to be made on the basis of morality and on the basis of the wishes of the Congress. It shouldn't be made by the court. Now, I don't think that the Biden administration really wants to get rid of Title 42, because if it did, all it would have to do is promulgate a rule saying we're not going to enforce it any longer, and it hasn't done so. That's what's complicated this. There's something called the Administrative Procedures Act, which requires the federal government, before it changes rules, to write the rule, to post the rule, to give everybody notice and everybody an opportunity to comment on it before the rule has the force of law. The Biden administration didn't do that. My own view is identical with Justice Gorsuch's. This is not a job for the court to resolve. My own view is also the same with Judge Sullivan in DC, who ruled that Title 42 is inherently unconstitutional because it takes away liberty and property without due process. And everybody has the right to knock on America's door who's escaping totalitarianism. In my view, everybody has the right to walk across the border, whether escaping totalitarianism or not, because you have the natural right to travel, and the government can't interfere with that absent due process. I hope that makes some sense.
Certainly, I think but if we were to boil this down, we might say that, Gorsuch argues that Title 42 should end because there's no longer a coronavirus pandemic situation in the United States. The current border crisis is not a COVID crisis, Gorsuch wrote in his dissent. Isn't that fascinating, though?
Yes.
How the conservative view of coronavirus is that the pandemic is over. It was over a long time ago. But if the pandemic serves their ends on being anti-immigration, well, then the pandemic is still continuing. Isn't that fascinating?
Yes, it is fascinating. Don't lock me down, but lock out others, is basically what the conservatives are saying. And in this case, the most progressive member of the court and its newest member, Justice Jackson, and the most libertarian member are agreeing that the pandemic is over. There's no reason for this thou shalt not enter because we think you're sick rule to exist at all. On the other hand, this is a job for the executive branch to resolve, or the legislative branch if Congress wants to write a new law. Everybody's afraid of immigration. The Biden people are afraid to say we're in favor of open borders. The Congress is afraid to write rules. And now we have 5 life-tenured judges who will decide for us, is there still a pandemic? Is this rule still valid? I have a soft spot in my heart for Justice Gorsuch. We studied legal philosophy under the same professor, a generation apart. He's 20 years younger than I am, the great John Finnis, Finnis, who, along with the great Robbie George at Princeton, is the foremost scholar on natural law and natural rights in the Western world. And I understand and appreciate that is what motivates Justice Gorsuch a great deal. I don't know what's motivating Justice Jackson. She probably agrees with libertarians on open borders, but it's fascinating to me that the two of them agreed on that same dissent. The conservatives, unfortunately, will probably have their day and their way on this. And what are they going to do? Say that a pandemic that we all know is gone still exists? Force the government the executive branch to enforce a rule that it doesn't want to enforce, which is based on medical science, which rejects the basis for the rule? I don't know where they're going to go. And that's basically what Justices Gorsuch and Brown said. This doesn't belong in our court.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano. Quest Fanning has a question over in the chat. He says, would it be more practical to end the welfare state or to close the borders?
I wish the question didn't say, would it be more practical? Would it be more moral? I mean, it would be quite impractical to end the welfare state, but there's no basis for it under the Constitution. A famous Supreme Court opinion called Texas versus Poe, P-O-E, said that the states have to provide a safety net, which is basically food, shelter, clothing, health care, and education. It used to be food, shelter, and clothing. Now they add healthcare, and education. It has to provide it for all human beings. Obviously, the welfare state is what draws a lot of people here, but the free market draws a lot of people here. A lot of people come here because they want better lives. They're willing to work very hard for wages that they couldn't imagine earning in their countries, in an atmosphere of relative freedom compared to the places from which they came.
I agree with you, Judge, but can I interject on one point here?
Sure.
Doesn't
Sure.
the question of infectious disease present itself with a problem in regards to considering that if someone has an infectious disease and I do not consent to to them coming within my airspace and infecting me with a disease, then one might ask yourself, if we were to extrapolate that to a nation state, if Cuba had a raft full of plague victims and they were all clearly identified as ill with the bubonic plague, in regards to our property rights or my own right to life and liberty, don't we have a moral right to prevent them from entering the country because they carry an infectious disease?
Well, you have the moral right to resist an assault. And Typhoid Mary, okay, a person walking around New York City known to be infected with typhoid and refusing to quarantine or be vaccinated or whatever they did in that time is actually engaging in an assault. But the argument that people that are sick can't come here can be taken to people that are sick can't cross from New York to New Jersey, or people who are sick can't come out of their houses. I mean, how far are you going to extend this? It's going to bring us back to the lockdown area. But the basic law is, and this is the natural law as well, we don't even need a written law on this. If a person is engaging in an assault, whether by a fist or whether by sneezing known viruses, then that person can be restrained. Not because they came from Mexico, not because they came from Latin America, not because they crossed an international border without the permission of the almighty federal government, but because they have a disease, a communicable, dangerous disease.
But if that's the case, then, Judge, wouldn't it be reasonable in regards to an immigration policy that libertarians might favor, that in order to come to the United States, that you would have to have an infectious disease test as one of the standards in order to be admitted?
Probably so. I might have a problem with that in theory, because the choice to administer that test is based on the place of birth. I mean, should that test again be administered to me when I cross the George Washington Bridge from New Jersey to New York? Of course not. Why? Because I'm an American. Well, suppose I came from Colombia 2 days ago. Should that test be administered to me? See, the natural law prohibits making distinctions on the basis of immutable characteristics, one of which is the place of birth. But if there's reason to believe that I am sick aside from my place of birth, then it's rational to expect that I would either not be around society where I can communicate the disease, or that I would take some sort of medication to arrest the disease.
So then
that's why I don't think the Biden administration really wants to use Title 42. It's discretionary with the executive branch. It has nothing to do with the judiciary, as Justice Gorsuch wrote. They can either enforce it or not enforce it. It's a rule written by the executive branch. It's not a statute written by the Congress that must be complied with.
So then if Typhoid Mary is walking around and she knows she has a disease and we have a disease, or that we know that she has a disease, we know that she has typhoid, there is a libertarian argument to be made for quarantining someone like that?
Yes, she's engaging in an assault. Now, if she doesn't go near anybody, if she does what she needs to do to cure herself, and quite frankly, I don't recall what they did to cure typhoid. This is 110 years ago when she lived. They eventually quarantined her on one of the small islands in New York Harbor, and eventually she was cured. But yes, if a person is engaging in an assault, it's an act of aggression. Again, whether it's with a fist or with a virus, of course you can repel that.
See, that I think that's one of those areas I think that libertarians don't talk about enough because it's so controversial, especially in light of the coronavirus pandemic. You know, there to I mean, you know, by admitting that there is a libertarian case for I won't say lockdowns, but a libertarian case for restricting someone's movement, then I think it kind of leads one down the rabbit hole, which, you know, which kind of basically makes you feel it's not that everything is not black or white, Judge. You know, to far too often,
Unfortunately,
you know,
everything. Yeah,
go ahead.
you're right, Austin. Everything is not black or white. Like your questioner asked about the welfare state. Of course, there's no federal authority for it. Without it, I still think a lot of immigrants would want to come here because of the civil liberties and economic liberties, which, though repressed by government here, are vaster than they are, likely, unless they're coming from Switzerland, to be the case from wherever they came from.
Judge, you wrote an article that's coming out on judgenap.com this week about the type of foreign policy that was advocated for by John Quincy Adams, where he talked about America does not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. She might become the dictatress of the world, but she would no longer be the ruler of her own spirit. What's the content here, Judge?
Well, the context is in the 4,100-page omnibus spending bill, 4,100 pages. They had 2 hours to read it in the House of Representatives. Well, we all know that members of Congress never read what they vote on. They had 15 minutes to read the Patriot Act. Another story for another time. Tucked into the 4,100-page bill is jurisdiction for the federal courts to try people who commit crimes in foreign countries against foreign persons and who are kidnapped and brought here. The old rule was the victim had to be an American or assets of an American for the perpetrator to be kidnapped and brought here and tried. But now a foreigner can commit a crime in a foreign country, a crime that's not even a crime in the United States, against a foreign victim. And if the president wants to kidnap that person, he can and bring them here. And the federal courts have to hear this. Well, why is this in the omnibus bill? They put it in there as a favor to President Zelensky, so that he could argue that if some 22-year-old Russian boy kills an Ukrainian civilian, the American military can arrest that boy and bring him to the United States, and he can be tried here for a case that has nothing whatsoever to do with American laws or American laws, and the federal courts are required to hear it. The analogy to John Quincy Adams was, when we go around the world looking for monsters to slay, we don't spread democracy, we spread violence. And this crazy, insane rule, which was not even debated, tucked into the 4,100 pages, is going to come back and bite us. If the American government can kidnap a foreign person for acts done in a foreign country against other foreign people and bring that person here for trial, can the Chinese kidnap a high-tech executive vacationing in Hawaii and bring him to Beijing for trial? Answer, yes, under this law, under this thoughtless, non-debated law enacted as a gift to the president of Ukraine.
Judge, one last question before we let you go. I've got a little bit of a cold this morning. I've been kind of fighting it here in the last couple of weeks. And hopefully I'll be on the road to recovery, but I have been enjoying some delicious hot soup. That's always been one of my roads to recovery. And now, Judge, I realize I can't even enjoy my soup that's supposed to make me feel better because, according to you, the government is in my soup. What the hell?
What a fabulous intro. So I am doing, since I left Fox, my third off-Broadway show. I did a one-man show about a year ago. I did a show with 4 comedians last fall called Indictment Excitement. Now I'm doing a show starting on January 9th, Theater 555, which is 555 West 42nd Street in Manhattan, called Why is the Government in My Soup? I won't tell you the answer to that question because it's the last part of my 70-minute show. But I will be discussing the crimes of Donald Trump. Can the government just sweep people off the streets because the police think they're mentally ill without due process? Can Kanye West say that he loves Hitler? All these types of things. Can people walk across the border without interference by the government? All these types of things that we may discuss at cocktail parties, but rarely talk about in public.
Oh my God.
Maybe I can drag you to New York to watch this.
I would love that. I haven't seen a good Broadway show, an off-Broadway show in quite some time. Judge Andrew Napolitano, the host of the.
Well, I hope you get better. I hope your cold. I hope your cold goes away. And I know I'm off this week, but I miss my Austin. I miss my 20 minutes with Austin Peterson.
I know, Judge.
That's why I called you last time.
Every time you're on, Judge, just the commenters and the chatters just talk about how much they love our discussions because there are no discussions in the world between two libertarians that are occurring and asking these kinds of difficult questions and probing into things like, viruses as an assault in regards to immigration. No one else in the world is having those conversations, Judge. They're only happening between you and me, and they're only happening here. Thank you for your friendship. We love you, Judge, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the new year.
All the best. Get well soon, and Happy New Year, Austin.
Thank you very much, Judge. What did you think, Judge Andrew Napolitano? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Wasn't that good? I guess I ran out of time. That means that we don't have any more show. That's it. 8:56. I gotta go. I gotta go produce an afternoon talk show. Don't forget, visit our friends at Lear Capital. Right after the program, head to learaustin.com. Get that information packet from them on gold and silver offerings for free. Send you a bunch of information about ways that you can invest in gold and silver to secure your financial future at learaustin.com. See it down there? LEARAUSTIN. Appreciate you very much. We'll be back with tomorrow on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.